Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. I know I'm not the first one to do this, but I feel like I really had something to add compared to what everything that was said. I am going to watch the trailer for Outward 2 with you and add some comments and say that everything that I can deduce from whatever I'm seeing. I've played Outward 1 quite a lot. I've followed the game for quite some time. So I feel like I can add some insight to whatever we might expect in Outward 2. Lots of things to say. I'm going to skip time and look at some extracts and try to provide you with as much information as I can. The first thing I want to take the time to do before that is have a look at the map. So if we look at Outward 1, Outward 1 was concentrated in Levant, Monsoon, Berg, and Cierzo. These were the four main cities and main regions, because there's one city per region, that we had in Outward 1. And then with the DLCs, we got Sirocco and the Three Brothers, we got Harmathan and the Antique Plateau. So Outward 1 was mostly concentrated on this west and southwest side of the game. It's a large area. What we know about Outward 2 is that they confirmed Haboob, the highly anticipated region of Haboob, just because of the name, because it's funny, would be in Outward 2. This was said in the stream that Guillaume did right after the trailer dropped, and we also know that we will be able to go to the Gilded Mountains of Tramontane. And obviously he mentioned that most of the game would be in the east. He said that there would be 4 regions and that 3 of these regions were already on the map and 1 of them was not. What I personally believe is that the game is going to be concentrated in Haboob, Karaburan and Tramontane, and then that this 4th region to the east is mostly going to be centered around the Scourge and this big fissure. I personally would have loved to see the city of Orochi, but I really doubt we'll see that, maybe in a DLC later in the game. So one interesting thing is that this map is actually accurate in some ways. You see we have the yellow part for the desert, this greenish pale green with a lot of water part for Berg. That's an interesting thing. So I personally believe that the few information we can extract from this map is actually accurate to some degree. And that is what I'm going to base a lot of my analysis of the trailer on. Let's dive right into it. Let's go. Okay, I can start from now. So obviously, with what I just said, this is an icy cave with lots of ice formations and we'll talk a bit about these sigils or whatever they are, totems. This is obviously, to me, going to be in Tramontane. If we look again at the map, there's this white part everywhere and mountains. We know for sure that Tramontane is a pretty icy region. There is one weapon that is called something, the Tramontane Gilded Shiver, or something like this. It's a dagger that is entirely made of ice and that does ice damage. So we know for sure that this region is a very cold one, and this was pretty much confirmed by everything that was said, and it's confirmed by the map. This leads me to believe that this is obviously a cave that is going to be in the Tramontane region. And I have a lot more to say about these images.
It's been 50 long years. Every day remains a struggle.
Okay, I want to talk a bit about the enemies that we see here. So we have this guy, you can see on the right, a bit in the shadow. We have a way better view of him later in the video. I think it's around, yeah, it's there. So this is the same guy, this is this guy. And as you can see later in this part of the trailer, these guys are accompanied by Wendigos. My personal belief, And what I think is going to happen is that these sigils are probably marks of simply a new enemy faction. So if you remember the way enemies worked in Outward, and NPCs too, that they were all divided into factions, and factions that did not like each other most of the time. So what this led to is that enemies tended to fight each other quite a bit. They did fight a lot, and you could make them fight each other, which was a very useful trick to, survive a lot of encounters. What I think is that we are going to have an expanded faction in the game that is going to be centered around Wendigos. Wendigos used to be their own unique faction. They were hostile to everything, if my memory is correct. They were hostile to everything, and I think now they are going to be an expanded faction for the Wendigos. And I think this is something that is quite a big feature in Outward 2 in general. So we're going to have the Wendigos, and then these shaman things that we see on the back, and then these guys who kind of look like ghouls or zombies, but we can see that they have a lot of similarities with 1, Wendigos, and 2, the shamans. The thing they share with the shamans is these spikes on the elbows around this part, and of course the blue skin tone, where we cannot see much. And what they share with Wendigos is the claws. If you look closely, they have very sharp claws, and Wendigos are exactly the same. We can see a bit better right there. If we look closely, we can see that they have also very long claws. The thing with Wendigos in Outward is that they are very similar to what the legend around Wendigos is, the original one. And these are basically humans that became cannibals, and cannibalism twisted their souls, and it transformed their bodies into a monster, that monster being Wendigos. That is why, if we look quite closely, and that's one of the coolest features of Outward, I don't know if I'll be able to show it quite well. We'll see. You can pause at the right time. Yeah, right there. You can see a human skull there. This is the original skull of the person that has been turned into a Wendigo by cannibalism. So what my hypothesis is that these guys are future Wendigos. So they have the same spikes as the shamans. And I definitely think that we are going to have an entire new enemy faction that is going to be centered around Wendigos, and that these totems are probably sigils that show the places where these guys actually hang out around. And they make me think a lot about dream catchers, and these are part of the same real life culture, well, similar culture as where Wendigos come from. And another interesting thing is that if you look at the way the character, so it's a bit on a different subject, but if we look at the way the character falls, it's a very similar animation to the way characters fell down in Outward 1. So this leads me to believe that a lot of animations are probably going to be maybe a bit tweaked but reused from Outward 1, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Okay. I'm going to take the time to talk a bit about this. Let me show the entire clip first. Sorry.
Every step forward.
There are lots of things to say about this. First of all, let's look at the location. So what we have right there is lots of trees, a relatively dry terrain, even if there's lots of grass and everything, but we can see with the red rocks. And behind there's these gigantic rock pillars. We can see way more. So this is in the same area. We can recognize the fauna. This is also in the same area because of the color of the rocks. And we get a better image somewhere near the end. Yeah. This is also the same region. We have this combination. This is probably the best image of it. Combination of green forests, dry forest with these gigantic rock formations and a river in the middle. if I look at the map, this could only be one place, in my opinion. It cannot be Tramontane, as it's the icy region. The Outwoods region tend to be quite diverse. They are very easy to distinguish from one another. I personally do not think this is Karabaran because it's look grayish, so and it doesn't fit. And especially there's this big river that appears a lot every time we see this area. So my personal thought is that this is actually Haboob. On the map we can see that Haboob has some forests, and there's this river that is crossing the region that it seems to be quite important. And it's completely absent from Karabaran, and obviously we know it's not Tramontane. So there is also this combination of forests with these giant rock formations. And I definitely think that the part where we see our character, you know, all this part with the giant rocks, and especially the part where we see these characters fighting is probably going to be this part called the impasse range. So to me, this region that we see that looks dry with all the forests and everything is most likely Haboob. And there's another interesting thing about Haboob. And if we look at lots of things to say at this character, okay, there was this, he obviously has a shovel in his hand, it's a gardening tool, and the only place where there was a gardening tool in Outwood 1 was in Cierzo, behind the house. It was a pitchfork, and it was definitely a starter weapon. And if we look at this character's clothes, this is very obviously a beginner character. My personal thought is that the game is going to make us start in the Haboob region. I do not really understand why they would show a beginner character in this region and not in the others. I think that the game is going to make us start in Haboob, and what leads me even more to believe in this is a clip that we have later, which is this one. Okay, this is right after. There we see another clearly, obviously beginner character. He has the same top, and he has the very famous plank wooden shield, which is a very early beginner item in Outwood. And obviously he's fighting a pearlbird, and pearlbirds were only present in Chersonese, which was the beginning region. These are relatively weak monsters. And we have also the confirmation this is not only this clip. Way later, right there, we see another shot of what I believe to be a boob with a pearlbird in it, and I definitely think there's no way they would not be giving us that much details for no reason. And I don't think this is obviously this is pre-alpha footage, so all of this could change in the future, but as of now, if they don't change anything, I do believe personally that this is Haboob is most likely going to be the starting region of Outwood 2. A bit last thing to say is about this guy. Okay, so this boar thing, lots of things I want to say about it. First of all, they look incredibly cool. I don't think there's any debate about this. But if you look closely at the animation that he's attacking with, so he's doing a left then right, right then left swipe in the charge. There is a monster in Outwood 1 that has a very, very, very similar animation. That monster being, well, hippopotamuses that we got in the Three Brothers DLC. They had a similar color palette for the fire ones, but they had different types. But they had tusks, not exactly the same. They were a bit shorter, but they had tusks, and they had this exact same animation. And they would charge at you and then do right left swipe. And they also had something interesting, and this is going to be quite important. They were used by giants, ash giants, if you remember, used them as mules. They used them as mules to carry their stuff around. So there was one encounter you could have with a giant warlord, and it was accompanied by a hippopotamus with some stuff strapped to its back, some chests and barrels. It was quite obviously used as a mule to carry stuff. And we do know that in Outward 2 there are going to be mules. And oh surprise! Look which animal is used as a mule in Outward 2. It's obviously this boar. So I have some hypothesis about this. Since, the mules that existed in Outward 1 were so linked to giants, I am wondering if so there's a few possibilities. The first one, and the most simple, is that I'm completely wrong about everything I say about mules. And then there's a few options that are hypotheses of mine. I do think that giants and mules are going to be linked. Maybe we get a giant skill trainer or trader that is linked to mounts. Not mounts, mules, because there's no mounts in Outward 2 that was confirmed by Guillaume. First hypothesis, we are going to be able to buy mules from a giant trader. Second one is that mules might be linked to a skill tree, and then we are going to have a giant skill tree trainer, which could be quite interesting. But I hope that we get more than one mule, because customization is very funny, but who knows? And it's kind of cute in many ways.
Every step forward
Okay.
is paid in blood.
A small thing to say about this clip. This is a returning enemy. Everyone who played Outward 1 is probably very familiar with them. These are Hive Lords. To me, it's one of the most interesting enemies we had in Outward 1 in terms of design. It's basically a zombie, but instead of sickness, it's bees making their hives into a body and slowly taking over and becoming a kind of living, walking hive. I'm so glad that these enemies are back and they look incredible. Another thing to say about this clip is that the player character gets defeated there and respawns in what I do believe is Haboob, because we see this bridge that was in the last clip and all the trees and vegetation is the same. Which leads me to believe that I cannot say what this place is, but this is most likely one of Haboob's dungeons. We'll have to wait and see whatever it is. And with all this clip, I have also one thing I want to talk about is that we finally get cloth physics in Outwards. You can see with the scarf moving around. This is something that was, I think, missing in Outward 1. Because, let's be real, cloth physics was there in a lot of games for quite some time. Dark Souls 1 had cloth physics. There was a little bit of cloth physics in Outward. In the base game, the only cloth physics I can think about is the halberd you could get. I'm wondering if it's the cleaver halberd. But it's the halberd you could get from the first bandit camp on the left after leaving Cierzo, where there was this small piece of white cloth that had physics. And then there's the hero's banner, one of my favorite, Duty. Duty, the halberd, my favorite weapon in Outward 1, that had a lot of cloth physics. And I was completely sure that should they do another Outward game, they would put some cloth physics in it, because they were quite obviously experimenting with it in the end of Outward. And cloth physics looks like it's everywhere, and it gives so much life to characters that I'm very happy they are putting this into the game. And right now, playing in front of us is an animation dedicated to bandages. I think it looks incredible. I hope that they have that this is not just for show, and that we have more than just bandages animation that are new, and we get a lot more animations specific to items. Because we already had animations for food and for some potions. But it happened that sometimes there was a placeholder item that looked the same for everything. So I'm glad that they are, you know, improving some of these animations, and it looks just amazing.
Mules have a goddess looking after them.
Not everyone
Okay, a
is
few
as
things to say
special
with
as
this
you
clip.
are, my dear
So as I said, I think this is definitely in Haboob too. Probably more in this impasse range on the south of Haboob. Just an hypothesis, I cannot confirm any of it. We have dual wielding, but this is not something new that we were talking about this in the trailer. One interesting thing is that if we look at the hive enemies, these are also hive enemies. They look very similar. They are just classic walking hives that we had in Outward 1. But they are different too. This one has armor, and this one doesn't. And this is also something, it links it to what I said about the Wendigo faction. I personally believe that they have increased significantly the variability of enemies inside every faction. So not big variations necessarily, but having, you know, different enemies like this for enemy variety, this is just amazing. And gosh, does the armored one look cool with its armor. Before I play the rest of the clip, look closely at the character with the shield.
You are, my dear Simeon.
This is exactly the same animation as shield charge that we had in Outward 1. So this first push and then the shield bash right behind, the 2-tick animation of shield charge. So this is a returning skill. What is I find interesting, so just look how cool this armor and this hive lord is, walking hive. Interesting thing is that in this small clip, we see a different animation that looks like a shield bash that is not shield charge. This could mean two things. One is that we have new animations, new possibilities, new combinations that will allow us to do shield bash. The other one is that it's simply a new skill that is going to be shield bash, which is quite interesting too. Okay, let's get back to that.
Everyone is as special as you are, my dear Simeon. Even so, they are.
Lots of things to say about this clip again. New armors that look very cool. This is a returning armor. This is the trade, not the master trader, but simply the Sorborian Academy or something like that. The scholar. This is the scholar outfit. Sorry. Well, it looks a lot like the scholar outfit. This, to me, and I'm pretty sure of it, is Tramontane. So it's a part of Tramontane. Reason I'm saying this is that later in the clip we get a way better look at what Tramontane will look like, and we have a similar motifs on the pillars all around it. So we get this clip that to me is also Tramontane. You see, same motifs on the pillars and pretty much same characters. But way later, we get one full shot of Tramontane. I think it's around here. Yeah, it's there. A full shot of Tramontane. Obviously, it looks fantastic. We have, if we look very closely at the pillars, we have the exact same motifs, and the general color palette is the same. So, why do I know this is Tramontane? Well, most likely because there's some stalactites, some icicles everywhere, and the big mountainous thing behind. And well, Tramontane is the only icy mountain region we have on the possibilities of regions. It looks fantastic. I just can't wait to go there. So to get back to it, these are, well, the blacksmith of Tramontane is right there, and I can't wait to go there. And then we have what I do believe is the main door of Tramontane. An interesting thing to say about this backpack. First of all, it looks incredible. I can't wait. And it is actually very similar to what used to be my favorite backpack in Outward 1, which is the Prospector backpack that allowed you, to have some kind of stick to attach your lantern in front in order to put some light in front of you. And it's the exact same thing. We have this stick with a lantern slot, and then right there later we can see a character that has exactly that, but with the lantern attached this time. Let's play the clip. With the lantern attached, it just looks incredible. I can't wait to use this backpack. Okay, we'll get back to this. Not much to say about this clip, except that the armors look quite cool, and this is the entrance of Tramontane. Oh, sorry. Again, amazing cloth physics, but we get troglodytes back. This is one of the most emblematic enemies of Outward, and I'm so glad they're back. Troglodytes are in this biome that is quite different from the two others we have seen. So let's look at the map again, and let's try to think. This is definitely not Tramontane. This, technically we already have what I think is Haboob. So this could only be Karabaran or this new region we do not know the name of. The thing is, the entire part of this region is kind of exotic, and with it's underground. We can see a bit more of it later. Ash Giants returning, of course, one of the coolest enemies ever made. It's underground. It's completely underground. We see a way better shot right there. Completely underground with these giant mushrooms and holes on the top. A few things I have is that these trees do look kind of similar to some of the trees we can see in what I do believe is Haboob. So one small theory I have is that it might be underground Haboob, though I'm not sure, and it would not seem that logical at all, since they confirmed that there would be only 4 regions, and if you make an entire underground region for Haboob, that, well, puts it technically to 5. So most likely this is Karabaran or this region of the Scourge, since there's a giant fissure. Maybe this is how we're going to get there, but it does not look corrupted. I mean, this is very literally written the Scourge, so this place should be riddled with powerful enemies and dangers and corruption creatures, but we have not seen any. Maybe it is because it is 50 years in the future, but that would seem quite I don't know, I'm not sure about it. So my hypothesis is that this is actually Karabaran, since in some images we can see, I think it's in the, yeah, you can see a city right there. Might be a ruin, but might actually also be the city of Karabaran. We'll have to wait and see. We don't have enough information yet.
At every turn.
Small thing about this. Obviously we have the same sign, so this is probably the entrance of a cave in which there will be the new, the complete faction of around Wendigos. We have these new cool enemies that look like orcas on legs. I can't wait to fight these guys. They look quite interesting. And then we have this. So this is definitely a new sigil. It does not look like any of the sigils we had in Outward 1. And there's these runes. I might, if I have the time, try to translate these runes. If they do say anything, it would be quite funny. But we do have this smoke effect on the character and these enemies that are passing through, and he's sneaking. So I do believe this is probably a skill tree centered around stealth magic. We'll have to wait and see, but this is so cool that we get to see new spells in Outward. I expected it anyway.
They surprise me with their adaptability.
And this is one of the coolest clips. I mean, we have this guy who's once again wearing what I do believe is the scholar outfit from Outward 1. And he's fighting with a two-handed mace, an ice two-handed mace. He's fighting this kind of ice lizard that looks so cool and has amazing animations. I can't wait to fight this enemy. It looks amazing, and that's one of the enemies I'm most hyped for in Outward. And we got to see quite a bunch of different lanterns too. This lantern is quite different from what we had before. I talked already about this.
You know the dangers they face.
And the Wendigos do look incredibly cool. And this is the return of another spell. A fan favorite, the Fire Sigil, using a Firestone to cast a Fire Sigil. And then he uses a Fireball behind, he uses Spark Insight. So these are some returning spells, nothing too interesting. One interesting thing is that look closely at this clip. As you can see, in the entire trailer, we did not see any dodge roll. We can all agree that even if dodge roll is a very important mechanic, in a lot of games it is kind of the core of the Souls-like combat. It does not look very realistic, and Outward has always been about immersion and some degree of realism. I have an hypothesis. I think that they replaced the dodge roll by a step dodge, which is way more realistic in terms of what it looks like than a dodge roll. It could also simply be something else. It could be an attack animation, but this is my hypothesis. I personally think they replaced the dodge roll with step dodge, because in the entire clip we see multiple times where there's no dodge roll and something that looks like a step dodge. Like if we look very closely at this clip, look at this character and tell me he doesn't do a step dodge right there. Like look at it.
Many others have a goddess looking after them.
Not everyone is as special as you
Right there,
are,
step
my
dodge.
dear
He
Simeon.
goes
Even
back
so.
and then he comes back. So I do think this is an interesting feature, because I also like the step dodge a lot. Super cool enemy, obviously.
No, darling.
And I think what we're going to see right after is definitely a new spell. I think this is a new spell that allows you to blind enemies with the lantern, which would be very cool, that we finally get some spells that are maybe specialized in crowd control. Quite interesting. And another combination of a spell with an item. Maybe it's a skill. Who knows? We'll get to see. And once again, just look at how cool this area is. I can't wait to visit this one. Well, I'm not quite sure where this actually is. And the armors, the weapons, and the shield, the glowing shield, is just amazing looking.
Far, our world has expanded.
And again, this dress looks just so incredible. This mage's dress, from my guess, I love it. And this mage is using spark to light the campfire, and he's going to put down a tent. This is some returning
Enter
features.
into the unknown.
And she has hair physics too.
Don't hold their hand. Just open the
And once again, we get, this is why I definitely think that this is Haboob. We get this bridge that we already saw, and the giant river with the stone pillars and this stone bridge. Like, if we look at the map, this has to be Haboob. We'll get to see. Maybe in the future we get more information.
and they'll do the rest.
So just to finish things up. Okay. I've talked about everything I've seen. I've tried to give you as much of my hypothesis and the analysis of a trailer as I could. I just want to quickly talk about whatever Simeon and Calixa, the two characters that are talking, say. They don't say anything too interesting, but what they say is that Calixa says that ordinary people can do incredible things, and this is definitely a confirmation that Outward 2 will be using the same principle as Outward 1, is that you are a nobody that eventually rises to fame and power through its own achievements, but you start from nothing. And I think this is one of the core features of Outward 1, and it's very important they maintain this, that you basically start with pretty much a blank state, with a character that is not the chosen one, is not the Dragonborn or something like this, and I just like this concept. Well, thank you very much for watching. I hope you found whatever my theories were interesting, and that maybe do not hesitate to discuss whatever I said and your own theories in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching again. I'll see you again, and bye. And obviously, if you want to be updated on everything related to Outward 2, well, you can subscribe, and I'll make sure to give you any information I stumble upon. Thank you again. Bye.